Hello and welcome to Gym with Gwynne. I'm Oliver Gwynne, and this is where I give you my off-the-cuff and unrehearsed thoughts on marketing data and philosophy. This week I'm talking about how nobody ever leaves your category and why that is important. Now, if you look at the second ever Gym with Gwynne, it was about how category trumps product in a lot of cases, and how once people have come to a mental decision to do a certain thing, it's very rare that they will completely exit that category. In my example was where you have a friend who is in a long-term relationship for a long time. They're wanting to get married, it doesn't happen, the relationship breaks down, and then quite often, quite quickly, they find somebody, they get married within the next 6 months, even though they just spent 10 years in a relationship. And I believe that that is a sign that once you've made the decision of I'm ready to marry now, it's just a case of who's in front of you and if they're the right person. And that thought reoccurred to me this week because I was clearing up my stuff and I came across this watch. It's a James Bond film watch that I wanted when I was 13. And for many, many years, I didn't even think about this watch, but eventually on eBay, I was like, oh, what was that cool watch I remember seeing in the back of the comic? I remember where it was placed. And then eventually I got it secondhand and I was like, yeah, I always wanted this watch. And although this is a specific product, I do think it's generally true that once people have made a decision that they like a certain thing, it's very rare that they will go back on that. So I wanted to look into the studies that have been done about category behaviors in particular. What is a category? I guess you might sell ice cream, but ice cream is in a category of sweet treats, or it's in a category of cold sweet treats. But generally, your category is something sweet and a treat. So there was a 13-year-long study done of US household panel data across 474 consumer packaged goods, which tracked category revenue growth and decline, identifying behavioral drivers of category changes. And while not 100% didn't ever leave, they generally found that category usage is remarkably stable over time, and yet growth in categories tends to stem from deeper or more frequent usage, not wholesale dropping of categories. Even in the app world where, apps are trying so hard, so many apps get downloaded and then just deleted within the first 48 hours. There was a study done of mobile activity tracking app over 31 months, 115 million logged activities for 1 million users, and that revealed that over 75% of users return and re-engage with the app after prolonged inactivity, which is really interesting. And the pattern suggests that people don't permanently leave the category. They just cycle it in and out. They come back to it sooner or later. There was a behavioral stability during life status changes. So obviously, most of us could recognize the fact that when we go through life and big things change for us, that is the most likely thing that will cause a category change or a way that we're spending. When you're young in your 20s, you can't afford things. As you get older into your 30s, if you've not got kids, you can afford nicer things. So maybe you'll get those Michelin star restaurant meals, or you go on a luxury holiday that you could never afford before. But actually, it found that even though big life changes obviously change our spending quite significantly, um, that doesn't necessarily it shifts preferences, but those preferences, including categories, are noticeably stable overall. So while not a high percentage of staying in a category, it supports the notion of inertia at a category level, which is really interesting. So John Farkas, in his book Golden Spiral, said a well-formed market category surrounds a need/problem and defines it with remarkable and comforting lucidity. That clarity inherently drives demand. When something or someone defines our problem better than we have seen it defined before, our natural inclination is to want to solve that problem, and our assumption is that the one who best defined the problem must hold the best solution. And so this is why it's really important to think higher in terms of not product and product usage and product features, but overall category trends, industry trends, because those are less likely to change. They're going to be longer term. And why is this so important? Well, especially in the B2B world or anything where you have a longer sales cycle, like car buying, where it's going to be 2 or 3 years in between cars. If you start to enter into the realm of wanting a luxury car, you're not going to exit that, even though it might take years or decades for you to have the right money. If you're interested in that and it's a hobby in any way, shape, or form, it's quite likely that you will buy that at some point if you can. And so for those luxury car manufacturers, it's really important that they don't piss you off. They need you on their marketing list. They need you on their social media because over a long period of time, and it might be 10 years, it's really hard to attribute this. It will have an effect and they will get sales from that. The tide will rise from it. 74.6% of B2B sales to new customers take at least 4 months to close. Nearly 46.4 take 7 months or more. This is according to marketing charts. In contrast, for existing customers, 60% of deals close within 3 months or less, with over 1 in 5 closing in under a month. And so, in a lot of categories, it takes longer. We need to warm up our audience. We need to educate them on our product or service or category interest. And I really like that quote from John Farkas about the person who understands the problem and can articulate it the best is assumed to have the best solution, as opposed to the opposite way around and saying we've got the best solution necessarily. So higher upfront buy-in and educational costs come with a longer sales cycle. And that's really hard to justify. And I think one of the things that goes unsaid in the data world is really hard to track from a data point of view. Most data is aimed at understanding things in a tighter window, so 7-day attribution window, 21-day, even a longer term things like that are difficult to do in a data world, especially if it's over years, because tracking is so difficult. People opt out unless you've got first party data about their email. It's going to be difficult. And so your tactics have to be different. And you have to think that educational costs, while they might be higher to educate that audience, and it's going to be harder to see the return, if you just keep putting out that message over the long term, they will, because studies show, and I think most of us kind of recognize the fact that people do not leave categories. If you know, or if you qualified somebody as being interested in your services, then keep in touch with them. But too often, all the budget goes towards new customers and not in keeping in touch with people over a long period of time. We're spamming people to get the 1% out of the 100 people instead of focusing on those 1% people and making sure that they've got good quality content, that you show that you understand their problem in a long period of time. Research on switching behavior in services shows that even dissatisfied customers often remain within the same category. They may switch providers or brands, but they don't abandon the category altogether. The literature on switching behavior notes that some dissatisfied customers still retain a loyal attitude towards the service type despite shortcomings. And the implication there is that it's easier for a consumer to switch among brands or providers than it is to stop using a category altogether. And that's really important. Obviously, you're then in a different ball game. And so when we're thinking about messaging, don't let the higher upper funnel things go wasted. Don't forget about your broader messaging and your category-led messaging that can remain consistent over a longer period of time. It's not going to be needed to be changed or swapped and all of those things which have an expense. And it also doesn't really need to relate 100% to your product, because if you can articulate the problem better, then that will have a more substantial effect. And in the B2B world, I always think that quality will outshine quantity every single time. I've never seen that not be the case. The reason why I write long form articles on the two things that I write long form articles is to show you I know generally what the fuck I'm talking about. And so when we're thinking about category trumps product in most cases, and it's important to have the same messaging over a long period of time. And people do not leave category. So do not annoy them by sending them free emails in 1 month or trying to get them down that sales funnel. In the short term, it might look good, but it might actually hurt your brand significantly more if you're turning people off, because once they've opted out, you should not be opting them back in. Those have been my thoughts for the week. Thanks very much for watching another Gin with Gwyn.